October 9th. I was there for 4 days. You know, and over 500 brothers were there in attendance, and about over 90 brothers approached my table that I spoke to, and over 200 brothers approached my table. And about over 50 brothers asked me, am I a Mason? And my response, I am. I'm a Mason. Yes, I am, as Masonry is our Moorish culture. No, not by lodge affiliation, as you are. So I addressed their intended meaning. Their intended question meaning is, are you a Mason as I am part of a lodge? That's their intended meaning. Right. So I did address that. So I said, yes, as Masonry is our Moorish culture. No, not by lodge affiliation as you are. So when someone asks, you are a Mason, yes, that is our Moorish culture. So you do not want to disconnect yourself. All right? Now, what is this?
Compass.
A navigational compass or?
No.
A bow compass.
A bow compass.
All right, it's a bow compass. What is this?
Is it the compass? Okay.
Bow compass, right? All right. Does this belong on a building?
No.
On a hat?
No.
On a t-shirt?
No.
On a bag? On the side of your pants?
Belong on your desk.
All right.
Doing work.
Belongs on the desk. What do you do in math class?
You use your tool.
You use it to draw circles, right?
Yes.
What Taj uses is what? This Plummet square. What do you use this Plummet square for, Taj?
Say it again.
Use this Plummet square for what?
For carpentry.
All right, to measure to what? To more specifically, you say for carpentry.
Plumbing level.
All right, come on.
And squaring of building materials, etc.
All right, so right angle. So you're measuring the right angle. So you're putting up trusses. So make sure that it's level
And squared.
and squared. Does this belong on a building?
No.
Hat,
Belongs in your toolbox.
t-shirts. All right. So what I'm doing is giving you instructions on how you can talk to Mason Deacon stars. You don't need to be general about it, because that's not going to get it done. You got to be specific in detail. So I'm just telling simple as a bow compass. Got from the dollar store, came with a small ruler, and I had this with me. And I went to when I went to the convention. And I explained to them, you know, what they have on there. But they all of them had it. All of them had on it, had all the aprons on. All 500 brothers. Gloved up, apron on. I explained this to them. They didn't make that connection because they're looking at it as a mere symbol, you know, of the order, not knowing that it has a function in mace, and some of them used it in math class as when they went to school. All right? So this is what masonry is. Masonry is not a beautiful system of symbols and Western allegories. Beautiful sense of morality, expressed in allegories and illustrated by symbols. No, that's not masonry. It's not a system of. This is not a symbol. Not a symbol. It's a picture of measuring tool. It's a picture of this. But it's not a mere symbol that you worship. You put on a hat, and, you know, put on back of cars. It's not that. So. Let me give you this first. Epistemology. No eraser? Oh, we got this. Epistemology is a branch of philosophy that deals with how one knows knowledge. A branch of philosophy that deals with how one knows knowledge. How do you know it's raining? How do you know rain is rain? How do you know that this is a marker? All right? So we have here nature, symbol. What has happened is what our ancestors did was we personified aspects of nature: thunder, an eclipse, wind, snow, shining of the sun. We express that through symbols. The knowledge of this origin of nature has been suppressed. So it's been a mere worshiping of just symbols without the knowledge of its origin of nature. So for instance, you see aspects of Anpu that is expressed in nature during this time of year. Anpu was Hellenized to Anubis. Anubis, or Anpu, is referred to as the god of death, god of the dead. And what does that mean? What do you see this time of year?
Fall season.
In Taj Tariq Bey. Anyone but Taj Tariq Bey. Anyone but Taj Tariq Bey. Thank you. What do you see?
Leaves falling.
Leaves falling, like nature dying.
All right.
Transition.
So that's Anpu. It's Anpu. Once again, it's nature's, not the symbol. Symbol's not the first. Nature's first. So Anpu is an expression of this concept of now leaves are changing. Vegetation is doing what? All right. So you don't see chlorophyll in the leaves anymore. So the chlorophyll is gone from the leaves. What the Europeans did, or with Halloween the 13th, Halloween 1, Halloween 1st, Halloween the 2nd, and so forth, what's his name, Jason, they took that and distorted it. Killing. Niggas didn't get killing. They took our culture and distorted it.
Into negatives.
Exactly. They didn't make something up. They took that which already is there and distorted it into something negative. So when we say, well, that's the European culture, we have to explain that's too. I'm explaining it's our culture distorted. They distorted it to explain the process. Go to the origin, like I'm doing with Anpu, express its nature, and then the Europeans took that concept and made it a negative and had movies. Killing. It ain't about you killing somebody. But nature, this aspect of nature with vegetation is what? Dying. Got to do the harvest before what? Becomes what? Too ripe. So that's just something that's basic. So we're not just running away and giving the Europeans our own stuff. Now, what you see here on the cover, you'll see this in churches as well. This cross is tilted at a 23.5 degree angle. And that represents the precession of the equinoxes. What causes the equinoxes is the axial tilt of the earth, tilted at a 23.5 degree angle, and the earth's wobble. Every 2,152 years, the vernal equinox moves in retrogression. So you have the sun rises in Aries during the ushering what? Spring. 2,000 years ago, it was what? Retrogression now.
Pisces.
All right? There you go. Pisces. Retrogression. Retrogression. Not Aries and Taurus. All right? Retrogression. So Pisces, then Aries. So this knowledge of person of the Eshonok is ancient. Ancient knowledge. Europeans, what they did was go opposite. Measurement tools. Rolling circles. An example. We have the point within the circle. The point within the circle, also a symbol for Ra. All right, sun. One. Also a nomen. A nomen.
Yes.
Gnostic.
Yes.
All right, Gnostic. English, no. Knowledge. All right, come on. All right, a nomen, a sundial. All right, that's what that is. It's a nomen.
Yes.
You have your point. You have an open field, and you place your pole, and the pole rod. Because you need that so that the sun can reflect the shadow.
Exactly.
So the pole casts the shadow. So what does the shadow do? How do you determine time based on what? The length of the shadow, where the shadow is cast. All right, that's what that is. So you have the point within the circle. Let me one more minute. Point within the circle with two parallel lines. All right, the two parallel lines. All right, here we go. Point within the circle, and you have your two parallel lines here that marking the winter solstice and summer solstice points. So they're not mere symbols, it has the function.
They're tools.
All right, you have here your four openings. This is a calendar. That's a calendar. All right? Yes. So this is a calendar here. That's your sunstone circles. There's thousands of all over the world. One world culture. All right? On that I'll end. All right, so once again, my book, Masonic Compass Square, the connection, the measurement, and timekeeping, go to mooresandmasonry.org to order the book. Thank you.
All right.
Give it up for the brother. And I think we're going to have brother Abdul here the following 2 Tuesdays. So, let's go. The following Tuesday?
Yes.
Tuesday?
Yes.
Just let me know how your schedule is, man. So, we're going to give it up for now for the brother Taj Tariq Bey. Let's give it up for him. Hey, look, anybody that want, he has new information. He has some flash drives. So all the stuff that I had, he got much more that's on these. So anybody want to get that, just get with him after the class, all right?
Oh, you got the actual flash drives?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Islam Grand Chief,
Islam.
how much are your flash drives?
15 notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is all. Now, so write this down, don't forget it. Now what Abdul expressed when the metaphors, signs and symbols are given in masonry, etc., and the personification of the powers, or the operative powers in nature, that is called that's what that is. And so when they're, as an example, when they express Santa Claus to children, they're talking about the Big Dipper. And once you remove the mystery from things, the masses have an opportunity to begin to liberate themselves. But they need to understand the mystery of the stories that all the stories are not necessarily lies, they were anthropomorphic approaches to teaching children. And then also understanding that the anthropomorphic tool is also a weaponized tool for social engineering, are we clear? And so what they've done in general for social engineering purposes, and this is the general attitude that Europeans have when they're dealing with us. They're not prejudiced, they're dealing with what you call Inquisition operation controls. In other words, they're controlling what you call the narrative. And so they control the education, and our people keep thinking that the Europeans have an attitude, and they're actually using government platforms as a war machine against the people. The governments are not in place to serve you, they're in place to attack you. But the operations are to pretend that they're serving you. Are we clear? This is where our people are confused about government, because they don't know history, they don't know rules, they don't know social engineering. And they've forgotten that the Europeans operating in the Western Hemisphere are colonists. They're not Americans. The key is to get the Americans to start calling them Americans. Then they can steal your birthright. When you call them Americans, they can steal your birthright because you just gave up your birthright. Now, the problem of it is, by our people not knowing these basics, and scholars among our own being compromised, not telling them the truth of how social engineering operates, we ourselves help bury the next generation ourselves. Then out of our own ignorance, call the rest of the world racist, not understanding that race is the human species. You know, all different things like that, and it's part of social controls. And this is part of the successes of the Europeans who are operating at North America. They have weaponized everything from the food to your rights of travel, converting them, your right of travel into a crime, and then selling you licenses, making the claim on the womb by the popes of Rome under Inquisition hegemony, and thus the marriage bank certificate called the marriage license, and all the things that the people have trusted to be normal in their life in relationship to natural divine things have actually been weaponized. Now, the difficulty is getting the people to rationally think of these things and stop supporting these institutions that never have supported them. And stop assuming things, but doing some real serious study, and actually stop feeding the beast. How you stop feeding the beast is stop supporting the institutions and the people who run the institutions that you have thought is your government, none of which is a fact. Are we clear? Your government pretty much has been overthrown. Are we clear? Some of the conflicts that you see taking place today in the political realm, particularly hoovering around Donald Trump and people thinking he's out to lunch. He's not so much out to lunch, he's talking what you would call rhetorical and metaphorical. Now, Donald Trump is a Knights Templar. That's for one. One of the things that you all need to make yourselves aware of is the historical breach between the Vatican and the Knights Templars. Now, while Donald Trump is a made man, and as you know, he's also in what you would call conflict. Now, Donald Trump pretty much inherited, or he's placed by one part of the military operations to kind of save or stabilize the empty bankrupt shell of the United States Service Corporation that's been bankrupted about 4 or 5 times, and that is no longer in the power position to force other nations to buy their T-bonds. Are we clear? He's in the position of having to try to force a lot of the Kabbalist corporate operations businesses back to North America. This is what those tariffs are all about. It's really a declaration to the rest of the world that the United States corporation company, understand it's not the country, is bankrupt. Are we clear? Key is they've been converting since 1861 their private corporate debt onto the natural people. Are we clear? And the natural people, not knowing the distinction between Morocco and the occupational forces under the Circle Church located on Fleet Street in England under the secret treaty of Verona, that they've been thinking is the nation. So the average person who's under the narrative think that the United States is a nation. All Masons, all Europeans, all Eastern Stars, all Illuminati, all Europeans know that that's a fiction. But they must maintain that fiction in the minds of the people so that they can convert their debt onto you. Are we clear? This is why when they refer to you, they will not refer to you as a human being, they'll refer to you as taxpayer. Are we clear? Now, of course, you not knowing better, and I say in general, you respond in kind without rebutting that. And or you may respond associating that with yourself. And that would be an agreement. Are we clear? Not knowing contract law. And as we were talking earlier with Brother Torian, now, and he had went to the Library of Congress, you know, which he could share with you in a few minutes if you choose to, and got some verification of certain documentation that we've been telling you all about for the last 34 years. But he didn't need to verify it, he just needs to really understand it. And all of you need to understand it. And you need to understand the nature of why you, yourselves, should be at the forefront of enforcing the Constitution for the United States, for it's an equity contract of Europeans doing business at Morocco. Once you understand these things, fundamentally, you'll understand why secret societies exist and why they've been suppressing this information and systematically, mentally disconnecting you from the estate of the land, and promoting what they have called the so-called Great Black Diaspora, to disconnect you mentally from the land so they can claim the land and claim to be white people, which means sovereign, knowing that the people who can't read think that that means European identity. If you get the point, when it actually means sovereign. Then our people keep calling them Americans, and so that means we call them sovereigns of the land. Then they've been claiming your estate, because whenever our people speak up, they usually speak up saying Freddie Jones or Freddie Johnson, and they're transacting business in European names for the last how many generations, not knowing that automatically anything they buy or sell or move or sign is state property. And then the European also has been claiming by probate any inheritances whatsoever. And these subtleties, very basic, is how they've been robbing you. Are we clear? And our people don't understand that because they do not understand trust law. They do not understand pedigree. They do not understand geography. They do not understand religion. They think they do. You know, problem is many people who they've trusted have actually been instrumental in helping to maintain what is known as black culture, which is really mean Christian property, deed, culture, civil et mortuus, i.e. their chattel property. And of course, they've made bonds, particularly since the commercial mercenary war that you've been told is the Civil War. And that's what the U.S. Treasury bonds are based in, that have been sold from 55 Water Street. And that's what all the birth certificates that people keep thinking they're trying to capture, the marriage certificates, the driver's licenses, etc., all of those are references to the CUSIC number that's on the Social Security card that is a routing number for the different 12 subdivisions of the Jesuit order of the Federal Reserve controlling their Negro, black, Christian cattle stock that would like to think that they're humans, but they're outside of the human family. Are we clear? Now, not in reality, but in a political form. Are we clear? So the Negro, black, colored brands would indicate for the record who's Christian property. That's how the European know who their property is. Are we clear? Now, the other deal of it is to promote that in order that people accept that as a norm and then never challenge it. Are we clear? And then that creates what is called proper, assumed, probate jurisdiction on the estates of such persons. This is another reason why they, in 1868, after they closed the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, why they converted person onto their private Christian corporations so that they could transfer the estates of all the people of Moorish descent that they branded Negro, black, colored, Indian, who accepted those brands thinking they're going to get some benefit. And that's the origin of the so-called civil rights activities that has been promoted amongst such persons to get them away from constitutional enforcement. Are we clear? There was to give you an argument, to give you something to keep you busy, to make you think that you were getting a right of claim of birthright and sovereignty, when it's actually to put you into the 4th Amendment stock category, the 14th Amendment stock category. Go ahead, Brother Mason.
Now that you brought up the 14th Amendment, I'd like to know your thoughts on what Trump's made the statement on, based on the 14th Amendment, and last week where he made the statement that he was a national.
All right. Now, when you look at that, if you pay attention, apparently Donald Trump, because you already know he's under pressure from the Manchurian elders, and of course the different nation states around the world are successively and continuously dumping U.S. Treasury bonds in any kind of manner that they can. They must, politically, they're keeping that as low-keyed as they can. And again, when you look at the politics, understanding the politics, Obama technically was the last president. Now, he did what is called a closeout missionary work. This is why he showed the people the real American flag. He signed the rights of indigenous people for our people to declare their nationality. Michelle went to the Alhambra, giving signal to 1492 and the Red House. Rahm Emanuel, the Jew, left the administration in 2010, told the history about Noble Drew Ali, us being the people of the land, and issued it on December the 22nd, right? December the 22nd, which is the entry of the, what? Winter solstice. What the people who don't understand the operations of nature would call Christmas, or Jesus going into the tomb. And so it's indicating the pole star, it's indicating Sirius, it's indicating Polaris, it's indicating Venus, the moon, and the sun. So that timing is not accidental, that signal. So when you understand signals, that are given, if people don't understand the politics, to him, he's talking with two heads. He's like out to lunch. Now, point. The rhetoric that's going on now, when they talk about white nationalists, right? And this is to divide people, right? What he's doing, he's forcing the issue of nationality to be talked about around the world. Are we clear? Soon as you analyze, white nationalism is no such thing. It's an oxymoron. So why is he saying this? What's he trying to do? Divide the people? They start the rhetoric. And so they're attacking him, but in attacking him, they're actually tearing down the paradigm of the color game system, because Trump is under pressure to fix this thing. Even though he's a Templar, and even though he's a made man, and he's kind of caught in the paradox of playing two sides, he's still trying to, if you pay attention, different signals that he's sending is a restoration of the republic. Are we clear? Now, whenever they're operative, knowing their history and their pattern, you look at that. You never trust them, but you look at that. If you get the point. When he's talking 14th Amendment, he's talking the bridge upon which the transmitting utility of the operations of the dead, the civil little mortuus class that was set up with the closing of the Freedmen's Bureau, that is its whole structure. That is its field marshal foundational operations, is the 14th Amendment. It is a political body of the dead. You know, now people who know the real history know that. People who don't know the real history think that's Negro rights voting. And they will defend it because, our Christian ministers marched and prayed for our right to vote. Their votes didn't count then, they don't count now, never did, never will. It's accepted as a sanctioning for their enslavement and used accordingly. Interesting thing too, as a matter of fact, because I was reading your text earlier today, you know, I was sitting actually having a coffee, and I was talking to a couple teachers and a manager of a store earlier today, and they went through the usual spiel of attacking Trump and why the people got to get out in the rain and vote because their ancestors died for the right to vote and all this other stuff. They don't even know, you know, the whole deal. I mean, they run around with badges on and stuff in the rain and with their children on it, you know, like they're showing they're really serious. They don't even know the United States Corporation is a company. They don't even know the difference between nation. They don't even know they're under occupation. They don't know the Europeans are Europeans. They're not Americans. They don't know that the U.S. government is a private corporation put in place politically to suppress the republic and the Constitution and every one of their rights. They do not know that contrary to the party line that most of our people project in their everyday conversations, anything that had a residual of benefit to the Aboriginal people of the land at all came from the Republican Party. Not one thing came from the Democratic Party. And yet they hate the Republican Party and vote Democratic. It's like an oxymoron.
And Democrats put more of us in jail than any other group of people.
Yeah, because that's a setup of Knights of Columbus and Ku Klux Klan. That is the Democratic Party. Now, and that's not a defense of the Republican Party as it operates now. But the Republic is actually us, you know, coming out of the Moorish treaties, which Torian has, and of course the Constitution, which comes from Muslim law. Of course, Barack H. Obama, you know, exposed that. Not that he needed it. He exposed that for those who didn't know it. He knows that the world knows it, but he knows that a lot of the people here don't know their real history, and there's a mental and educational disconnect from the whole political platform. So it was strategic even when he was in Hikupta, which the masses would know as Egypt, and exposed that the American Constitution comes from Muslim law. Now, logically, that would correlate with Michelle triangulating, going to the Alhambra to let you know who those Muslims are. Then, when the nations of the world, the international press, you know, took pictures of them, they deliberately cropped out the stars and stripes. Deliberately cropped it out and left the Moorish flag. And of course, they walked on a red carpet and she wore a red dress. This was all symbolic. You know, so when you hear different statements that Donald Trump is making, if you know the real history, although you take it with a grain of salt, the signals that he's sending is the restoration of the republic. Now, what it is also is an appeal to the masses to the integrity of the office of the presidency for the United States, which in fact has been abandoned. In other words, he's speaking with authority when actually he has none. Are we clear? Seeking for the people to support the alleged authority by inferring that he's restoring the republic, even though certain other things that he says are simply compromissional, if you understand. But most of his rhetoric, if you read between the metaphors and the lunchbox statements that appear, that people think is lunchbox statements, he's really outing the pedophiles and the Khazarians, even though he has been supported by some of them, if you get the point. And so that's what I have to say about the 14th Amendment and also white nationalists, because I already know, when you know the politics, you can read past these things. Politicians, just like preachers, never say what they really mean. But you've got to learn the language, just like, say, for instance, certain things that preachers might say. If you really don't know the Bible is a cosmology book, he can get his criminality off on the people hiding behind Jesus. But for somebody who knows, he can't get that off. Same thing with the politicians, because the people who know the real history know that the politicians and the priests are really partners. Always has been. It has never been other than that. The different names are for control purposes over the masses who don't know how things operate. And yet every one of them would be members of secret societies, whether it's Knights of Templars, Shriners, Masons, Eastern Stars, Daughters of the American Revolution, Knights of Columbus, Thule Society, Knights of Malta, etc. Every president, as an example, whether he be a Shriner or any other order, will be a Knight of Malta. All of these are, in fact, military operations under the Inquisition hegemony that people who are ignorant of the real politics have been calling white supremacy. But once you understand the real politics, you're able to kind of take the narrative that they present to you and punch holes in it and really see what they're really saying. But the masses themselves will usually be guided into arguments and petty debates that they really don't even know what they're talking about. However, that's how they control the narratives. Then they just take the miseducated people and pit them against each other. And that way they maintain power. However, it is important for the people to know the real history, and not only to know the real history, but to have such knowledge and the capacity to read through or pass what you call the narrative line. More important than that is not unlike what you do earlier, because I'm just talking to you bluntly. When you know certain key things, you share information. You look at timely things, like, for instance, because you know the politics, you can see through things that sometimes other people overlook. But that concept of mind of educating and sharing information that you do as a norm is what we need to get amongst the people as a norm, and get them out of that dead so-called black culture that they actually think is culture when it's actually anti-culture, because they think that black's an identity. And that's the only reason why they protect it. They protect it out of designed ignorance. And so actual fact and knowledge must be presented to the masses in such a manner that they have reference point that they can research and cross-reference, not unlike Dooley's books, as an example. One of the advantages of Dooley's books, like, for instance, like if we're lecturing, right, most of the stuff I concentrate on is more or less remedy and recourse. Detailed study, go into Dooley's books, if you get the point, and that would give you a liberated mind to understand the canvas behind the canvas. Also, whereas as the people are coming into the knowledge that they can resist the tendency to come with that self-righteous attitude, which is not profitable for them, not beneficial. As a matter of fact, it's actually counter to our interests.
In Islam, speaking of remedy, I apologize to everyone for getting you off the path. But if you go ahead and proceed with your lecture, I apologize.
That's because that's what we know. One of the things that I want to do, and me and Ollie's talking about this. Now, one of the things I was going to do, I was going to go into the social engineering of, say, Rex 84 and Executive Order 11490, King Alfred, to show the concepts that the Europeans have in relationship to dealing with so-called black people. That their critique of us, their analytical critique. Now, their analytical critique is essentially this. These people want the benefit of government, but they're too lazy and shiftless to study the discipline. They want the benefit of civilization and too lazy and shiftless to even study the discipline. Yet they're going to always tell you about gods of Egypt and gods of this. And so they are actually in contempt of anything civilized. And thus, they're using that concept as a justification to abuse the people, saying that since they will not use basic human intelligence, they're no better than the beast of the field, and it is justifiable for them to treat them accordingly. In other words, they've created a platform of ignorance with us. We've adopted the ignorance in the name of black culture, thinking it's Afrocentricity, and the Europeans are using it as a justification to treat us like animals because black culture is so-called dead culture. It's anti-Moorish culture, which is world culture. While them same so-called black leaders like Martin Luther King, Abernathy, Jesse Jackson, all of them secretly got lodges, got a Moorish fez. Their lodges got Moorish names after women, places, and territories of the Moroccan Empire. They know these people are Moors, and they're promoting the black game because they know these people can't read, don't know the history, and don't know that Masonry is really Moorish culture. I mean, do you understand? And so they create this constant bickering and opinion of beliefs, and you don't know God, and Jesus didn't make you type mentality. These people are battling each other, and these very people who are leading them, in truth, know these people are Moors, knowing the land's Morocco. And they get all kinds of kickback benefits under the Knights of Templar and the 501c3 Negro payoff that Lyndon Baines Johnson set up after he murdered after he murdered Kennedy for trying to counter the abridgment of Article 1, Section 2, which is really why they killed Kennedy. You know what I mean? And so, and they needed to pump credibility on their Negro black marching overseer guys who are usually reverends, who secretly are 32-degree Masons to keep these people in the 14th Amendment, i.e. 14th Amendment, in other words, so that statement is actually an indirect counter move in condemnation. Because in attacking Trump, they're actually attacking the platform. They are actually dismantling. Probably don't recognize it because they don't know the history. They don't know the politics. So they're looking at what I have to say about that based on the evidence, not just mere opinion.
Thank you, sir. But I'm sorry to interrupt. But
No, don't, because that's good. See, because what I'm saying to you is that's what we want. In other words, that's what we want, the interchange. Meaning that most of the time, like say if we come with a set lecture, or a subject matter, most of the things that we need to talk about, we've been over redundantly. What we have less of is interchange between the people with honest questions. Just ask honest questions, and we'll just talk. We need to begin to understand the politics, and our people really do not understand the politics. They think they do, and I'm not knocking that. You know, but a conversation, a face-on conversation about current events, because everything that is done in the political realm really has to do with administering, managing, and going in and out of the Sister QB Trust and the World Global Trust. That actually is a management of the defeated Moroccan Empire, whose direct heirs think they Negro, black, colored, and Indians. So anything that they do is related to your estate anyway, you know. And so these current event questions are very important, because most of the people are led by the narrative, meaning that they would respond to what the intended, as Dooley would say, the intended meaning of the questions and the statements. You would begin to look past them and not be led like this every time they write a headline or every time they state something. You will calmly peel it off and look behind the veil. Observe it and go about your business and not be distracted, and never follow the crowd. Do you understand what I'm saying? But not just not to follow the crowd. You will not follow the crowd because you know the crowd are cattle being led to the slaughter. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Because you already know the rules. You see the point? So I'm saying to you, don't hesitate. Now, Torian. Now, if you have anything else, add it, because it's helped. See, a lot of things, because you constantly study, a lot of the questions or interjections that you make are actually needed for the other people. So don't apologize for that. I do that. You know, I welcome that. We need more people to do that. You know, and so a lot of times we'll go into subject matter because the people are silent. You know, we will go, you know, like trying to give them something to work with because they're silent. But they're silent because they lack information. They're not unwise. Our people aren't dumb. They're lacking information. They're reflecting from the controlled narrative that they think is their education, if you get the whole point, and not knowing that they've been dumbed down. I mean, they know it and don't know it at the same time. So that's welcome. Don't apologize. Take that and scratch that out off the tape.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. So as far as the suits, based on the lecture that you are going to perform, what is the start of that particular process? So in other words, let me go back. I know that Trump had...
This is the start of everything with us in general. Now, a suit, a lot of times people think that a suit per se is a legal action in a court. It's not totally true. This is the beginning of suit. Now, if any of you have any comment on that, make it. If you have any concerns of not getting it or thinking that it's unrelated to the question, which would indicate, do you really understand, or did you even really understand what a suit is? Do you understand?
I don't know what this is.
Huh?
What is a suit?
A suit is a claim by a demandant, who's sometimes referred to as a plaintiff, for restitution of a tort or an injury or trespass lodged or committed against themselves or their estate in what you would call a court of public opinion or court of judicial action. And court, for the most part, and the action has more to do with public opinion, if you understand, than what you call in an actual courtroom. A courtroom action is usually what you would call where the residuals of an aggregate is determined for final dispensation or decision. But the real courtroom is society. And therefore, what is the major key upon which the European hegemony operates under European colonial operations? Denationalization of the targeted people. So what is the foundation of the first level of suit? A proper person proclamation. Meaning that for the targeted being whose estate is attacked to step back in the honor of their mothers and fathers, because they were taken out of their honor of their mothers and fathers. That's what the brand system was for. Meaning that when the European put their family names, though those are modified, a lot of them are still modified Moorish names, but when the Europeans put their family names on the people, in law, it made such persons non-descendable at law, period, anywhere on the planet. Not a race opinion. That made such persons non-descendable. So this leaves an open platform for the European to operate the bond system that he created on the backs of persons branded Negro, Black, and Color, Smith, Jones, and Johnson, who are really none of these, who are really of Asiatic, African, Moorish descent, who are the direct descendants of the empire that was overthrown under the Spanish Inquisition, which is the foundation of the entire modern world's politics, period. To keep it simple, that's it, cut and dry. So what do you do with the people who don't even know that human beings are not crayons, and they've been saying this for generations? You know, the light-skinned, black-skinned, orange group of people of color, they don't even know that they just said, we artificial people trying to talk about human rights. That's what they don't even know that that's what they just said, because they can't read. But yet they have leader guys who are promoting this stuff as Afrocentricity and write black books too. And so there's appearance of credibility where none resides. You see? And so the paradigm of these social controls must be unraveled with intelligence and with reference points. This is another reason why, again, I'm not saying this because he's here, that I have so much respect for Abdul. For years ago, one of the most renowned etymologists, actually, I would say really in the modern teaching platform, even in the world, is Dr. Burton. He used to teach at Temple University. Years ago, we went to a few of his classes. I didn't continue because I was busy, because at the time I was mostly, running my contracting and doing stuff like that. But Abdullah Iltalib Mosey Beta, brother, who just showed you the books, maintained his studies at the class under Dr. Burton. Dr. Burton passed. He has an extensive library of books of etymology from around the world, and he's very well known. He passed form. Dooley, in his dedicated studies, and if you know him, you know he's very stickler to detail. The respect I have for Dooley, not just because he's my brother type thing, but because as a teacher, and as a teacher, he's also a teacher. He's taught thousands of people. He's maintained the integrity of what etymology actually is, not just a tool for linguistics, but it's actually a tool for unraveling history and actually doing what is called an intellectual logistical analysis of any discipline. And etymology is not looked at that for the most part by etymologists, nor is it taught that way in the limited schools where they do teach etymology. So much effort has been made to deny fundamental third grade etymology from our people that they think is some kind of scientific PhD stuff that Dooley's doing, and it's really elementary stuff that they should have started getting in third grade. I respect him because he uses it as a social healing tool, as well as an educational tool, as well as an educational tool on how to break down history and politics. And actually, he's given it by virtue of his honor in using it, a multiple faceted functional tool that it actually should be by any etymologist. And for that I give duly credit, because in spite of pressures, etc., and not taking payoffs to keep that black thing going, he has maintained his integrity. And as a matter of fact, he started even taking over the classes in Temple University, which he operates even to this day with PASEP, for those of you who know, in Philadelphia. That very same class, Abdul Iltalib Bozy Bey, give him a hand, and I'll give him a hand because I respect him for that. And I'll give it to you. And for much of the literature that you see now that he's produced, that's only a drop of bucket of his records. As a matter of fact, a lot of his stuff, he just had to bring it up because it becomes like this, if you get the point. So a lot of what you see shall be forthcoming. Go ahead, good brother.
Just a brother on Facebook Live, he wants to know, he says, where would you suggest is the effective office to go after a bond or file a lien at the Social Security or the Treasury?
All right, let's look at this. Now, and this is what we've been working on for like forever. When I say forever, that's an exaggeration. We try to do, as you understand, is to get the people organized, to get them to stop running after UCCs and everything, and to start investing in themselves in their own press, and start keeping their correspondence. Anything that, say, like for instance, Torian, if you're dealing with an issue, say you're dealing with an issue, Ali dealing with an issue, or I'm dealing with an issue, or you're dealing with an issue, that it would be updated in our own press and publicized in proper person concept. That is also a suit, if you get the point. And that would effectively start unraveling things. Are we clear? And I think the people's concept that a suit is always just a court action within the judicial system that has been absolutely compromised from top to bottom, and they think that that's the beginning of the suit. That's not it. The suit is first correcting a person, the natural person. That's for the record, because the natural person, by virtue of European occupation, has been deliberately distorted and misplaced. And they've deliberately created a Sister QV trust in a name that appears to be the being, which it really is set to a routing number under the global estate trust that was set up by the popes of Rome after the fall of the Moorish Empire. That's what that whole transmitting utility 14th Amendment thing that later manifests, that's what it's all about. That is it, all over the planet. Half of the nation states that you hear of today, if you trace back, say, 100, 125 years, half of them didn't exist. For most of them had other names and were part of the Moroccan Empire, including parts of England. Are we clear? So your concepts of how you look at things are incorrect. In order for those who've been ruling to maintain the integrity or the appearance of integrity of their rulership, they must keep that kind of information away from the general public. But for those who are assigned to certain positions of authority, it is important for them to know what the truth is. That's why anyone essentially, loosely,